welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. Have you ever experienced that pure, unadulterated panic? You know the exact feeling I'm talking about. You're right in the middle of cooking a big meal, your hands are completely covered in flour, the stove is blasting on high, and suddenly, you realize you are completely out of a crucial ingredient. It is just a universal moment of dread, isn't it? Well, today, we're exploring a really fascinating short story called The Function of Flavor and the Art of Substitution. It perfectly captures this exact moment of panic. But what's really cool is how it transforms a simple, everyday kitchen mishap into an absolute masterclass on problem-solving, building skills, and understanding the core mechanics behind how things actually work.
So, let's dive right into this super stressful scenario. We're setting the scene with some pretty incredibly high stakes for a beginner. Our protagonist here is Purnima. She's just 15 years old, and she is attempting something incredibly ambitious. She's cooking a full meal for her entire family of 4 for the very first time. And she is not just throwing together a quick sandwich. No, this is a total marathon. We are talking 3 solid hours of intense cooking. But right out of the gate, she hits a massive wall. She is missing not 1, not 2, but 3 key ingredients. I mean, just imagine the pressure. The clock's ticking, the family's waiting, and the recipe she's desperately trying to follow is suddenly falling apart right in front of her.
And this situation just brilliantly illustrates the chaos, but also the calm resolution that follows. So Purnima realizes she's missing cornflour for her koftas, she's out of tomatoes, and she has no lime. Now, for a novice, literally any one of these missing items is a complete recipe-ruining disaster. But enter Mama. Mama is the seasoned expert here, and she just calmly provides these rapid-fire fixes right from the pantry. Missing cornflour? No problem, just use refined flour. No tomatoes? Go grab the curd from the fridge. Missing lime? Just substitute it with some dry mango powder. What we're actually seeing here is a real-time display of culinary agility. Mama isn't panicking at all. She's simply routing Purnima to the next available tool that's going to accomplish the exact same goal. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast in the final outcome. After 3 grueling hours, the meal is finally served. And for the family, it was a total success. They ate it, they enjoyed it, and everyone was complimenting the chef. But then, we have Purnima's reality. She is experiencing that deeply relatable crushing imposter syndrome. Because despite all that glowing praise, she knows the truth. She knows the salt was way too high in some places, and in others, the masala was left completely uncooked. She feels terrible, really, because the external validation she's getting just doesn't match up with her own internal awareness of the dish's pretty major flaws. Which brings us to this really beautiful moment of vulnerability. Instead of just smiling and, accepting the unearned praise, Purnima actually turns to her mother and confesses, "I messed up." And then she asks the ultimate question, how do you get it so correct every day? This right here is the pivot point of our whole explainer today, because Purnima's feeling of failure and her willingness to just openly ask this question completely shifts our narrative. We aren't just talking about a teenager making a messy dinner anymore. We're now looking at a profound lesson on the entire trajectory from amateur to master in absolutely any skill you can think of.
So, the crucial point is Mama's answer, which is honestly an absolute goldmine. She tells her, focus on the function that is performed by the ingredient. This is the secret. This is exactly how she knew what to substitute earlier on. She wasn't looking at tomatoes as some irreplaceable red orb. She was looking at the function of the tomato, which, in this specific context, was just to provide a tangy, acidic base. And once you understand that function, suddenly curd becomes a perfectly logical backup plan. By focusing on what a thing actually does, rather than what it is, you instantly generate a whole menu of options and backup plans.
Let's see how this builds into Mama's much larger theory on learning and skill acquisition. Because there's a really clear 2-step evolution here. Step 1. When you are a beginner, you absolutely must strictly follow the procedure. You need that recipe to guide you. But step 2, the expert phase, that's where the real magic happens. Experts don't just follow the rules, they deeply understand the raw materials they're working with. Mama points out this brilliant fact: cooking relies on agricultural produce, right? Meaning no 2 packets of spices are ever going to be exactly alike. Tomatoes are going to naturally vary in their sweetness, limes will vary in how much juice they have. An expert learns to adapt to these natural variances to consistently suit the tastes of the people eating, rather than just blindly following a static, rigid formula. So how on earth does Purnima actually get to that highly adaptable expert level? Well, Mama lays out a few foundational rules for mastery. She first reassures Purnima that she actually did very well for her first time out, but her core advice is to radically shift her focus. Ignore quantity. Stop trying to cook a massive 4-course meal all at once. Instead, Mama says, do one single dish, learn that dish well. It's all about this singular, relentless focus on quality over quantity. Because, as Mama boldly states, quality wins everywhere, every time. And that's a foundational rule not just for the kitchen, but for literally any craft or profession you might want to master.
And speaking of mastering a craft, we really have to look at this fascinating contrast, form versus function. Mama actually compliments Purnima on her plating, noting that visually it was way better than her own. But Purnima, having just absorbed all these lessons, realizes a really hard truth. What is the point of beautiful plating if the taste just isn't good enough? We have aesthetics on one side and the fundamental requirement on the other. Plating is form, taste is function. Purnima understands now that visual appeal means absolutely nothing if the core function, the fundamental taste of the actual dish, totally misses the mark. Form must always follow function.
But hey, before we get a little too philosophical here, I honestly thought of using glue. This is such a fantastic, incredibly relatable punchline to the whole story. When Mama asks Purnima what she initially thought of doing when she realized that cornflour was missing, like right before she swallowed her pride and asked for help, Purnima admits she almost reached for literal craft glue to thicken the koftas. It's so funny, but honestly, who can blame her? It perfectly captures that sheer, irrational panic of a beginner whose back is completely against the wall. It's a hilarious reminder of why having a knowledgeable guide and actually taking the time to learn the true function of your tools is so incredibly important. Thank goodness Mama was there, right?
Which brings us to our final takeaway for today. When you encounter a missing ingredient in your own life, do you panic or do you focus on its function to find a substitute? You see, Mama's culinary wisdom extends way, way beyond the kitchen. Whether you are managing a complex project at work, building a new piece of software, or honestly just trying to organize your day, things are eventually going to go wrong. Resources will be missing. So the next time you find yourself lacking a critical tool, please don't reach for the metaphorical glue in a total panic. Instead, take a breath, pause, and ask yourself, what function did that tool actually serve? Because once you realize that the world is built on functions and not rigid ingredients, you really have to wonder, what other impossible problems in your life are just waiting for the exact right substitution? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy problem solving!